Well, this morning we're back at the mission here in Honduras. This is the coffee being harvested right here. Young Elmer's harvesting coffee right here. Now, Felipe, did he take all the beans off the plant?
No, so you can see he's leaving the green beans, which there aren't very many on this one right now, and you only take the ones that are nice, dark, and red. So he's
okay, so these real dark ones are ready to go.
And so you could just strip it, but he's going in and picking one at a time.
How young?
¿Cuántos años tiene?
10.
10 años. He's 10.
He's 10. How young do you suppose some start?
As soon as they can walk and put a pair of rubber boots on,
yeah,
they can do the coffee that's lower to the ground. So
now this particular area is so steep. You know, we talk about Vinny being able to be on a slope. There's no way Vinny could be on this. In fact, this is very difficult to walk, in my opinion. I don't know how much we can see over the hill here, but I think there's about 5 ladies and children, and this is the area where the women and children harvest because it is the easier place. So the men go up the hill to some of the harder harvest up there. So this is the easy harvest right here on the, and I'm telling you, this is steep.
5,600 right here, and the top of the farm's a little over 6,000.
So about a mile high, and we stayed the night 3 miles from here on the road. I mean, probably 100 steps that way, but 3 miles by the time we, and what's the elevation there?
About 4,200.
Okay, so we came up 1,500 feet, something like that, to get to this location. Tell me a little bit about the coffee. I mean, it looks like a tree. What?
It is. So you start in these little black bags as a coffee bean is the seed, and then it stays in the bag in the nursery for about a year, and then it gets planted and needs some care, and then in about 3 years it'll produce coffee. This plant's probably 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And then it can get 6 feet or more in height before it needs to be pruned, just because you can't.
Trim, and the only reason you trim it is to make it reachable.
So you can get to it. Yep.
Elmer's doing a great job. So he gets his bag full of coffee beans. Mm-hmm. How many cups of coffee is that going to make?
5 pounds of cherries will give you less than a pound of coffee when you're roasted coffee ready to. So it's a very manual, a lot of heavy lifting process, and of course once they harvest it, they have to get it from wherever they've harvested it back to a
so it's all got to come up this hill.
It's all got to.
And I'm seeing, you know, down the hill here maybe 200 yards at 60 degrees. I mean, this is crazy. There's some of the areas as we were driving up, they grow corn in this same, you know, mixed in with the coffee. And it obviously has to be planted by hand and harvested by hand. There is no way you could get any equipment on this hillside. But this turns out to be some really fertile land. I mean, it's black soil up here. It is great land.
Yeah, very. Not all parts of our mountains are apt for coffee and agriculture, but especially in these areas, it does really well. And you need some altitude to get good coffee.
Okay, now you do a lot of the processing right here on the mountain.
Correct. So when they harvest the coffee, we pulp it, we wash it, we can dry it up here, and then the only thing we have to do to take it down to town is to actually get it roasted to be able to send back to the States.
Tell me about that shirt.
John Deere, baby. This is...
That doesn't look like a deer.
It's a burro. Yeah, because we don't run like a deer here, we run like a burro. Nice and slow, but steady.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, I tell you, you need to be like a burro on these hills. It's unbelievable. It's a pretty steep place for little Juan Deere, or Bombín, as they like to affectionately refer to their little 1025R. Coffee farming would not be for me. I'm too old for this. Gracias, Elmer.
He's not being rude, or so there's just a different mindset for rural kids, and they're just, when we first came up here to do mission work, nobody ever smiled. No kid would ever play with you. It was a hard knock life, right? From you're doing that from the time you're.
Yeah.
So to see the kids in the milk project and just see the physical changes, to see how much more healthy people are from bringing groups up here and medical groups, learning to brush your teeth, learning not to have to, you know. So where we're going tomorrow, we have not been going for very many years. We've been coming here for 20 years. And when we took our dentists during the pandemic, who had not been working for us very long, and we went to Las Botijas, and then we came here. And so I set them up, and I said, which place had better teeth? And she's like, oh yeah, the teeth up here were way better. And I was like, yeah. So after 10 or 15 years of showing people and education, it makes a difference.
So tell me a little bit about the economics of the people here, the locals here, right here in the mission.
Yeah, so the people that live in these areas, you know, half of our country lives on less than $2 a day. That is especially true of the people that live, the forgotten people out in the mountains that nobody visits, that nobody helps. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this, to help our church and to create a more of an outreach to our community, but to give some people some jobs. So Elmer's helping his dad, and he's getting paid by the pound. He's on vacation from school anyway, so it's just good agricultural work that we can help out, and a lot of women that wouldn't have other opportunities. This is when some of these guys that are making $700 a year, they're all making it during coffee harvest time. And then the rest of the year, that's got to get them by. So they got to have, if they can't plant corn for their tortillas, that's when they got to buy that throughout the year. And the name of the game is just, it's survival. Every day, can I get some wood to cook with? Do I have enough food to eat? So we actually brought up some rice that we've gotten from another organization in the States to try and help some of these guys while they're here for a month or two at a time, so they can have some extra food while they're killing themselves all day to harvest coffee. But
yeah, now I'll interrupt there. We actually packed some of these. It's not pure rice. It's got some protein in it as well. We actually packed some of these bags for another organization called Eyes, the International Disaster Emergency Services.
Yep.
And we'll put a link for that in the description as well. And they have what's very healthy little single serving rice packs that you distribute in the area here.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these organizations work together to get the job done. But what I really like about his Eyes Honduras is that you're not about just giving people food. You're trying to give people jobs. You're trying to help them be sustainable on their own.
Right. We want to help people because we'll be dead and gone at some point. How can we help people help their future kids to have a better education, better opportunities for employment, all at the same time letting them know the love of Christ, because that's the only thing that's really going to last, because we're all going to be dead and gone, and the only thing we can really have for eternity is a relationship with him.
Yeah, so without Christ, you can see it here, there would be no hope.
Yeah.
And
hope at all. When we first started coming up here, knowing there was a big physical need, I mean, you could see that on people's faces here. It was a very sad place, and it's still a hard place to live, but it's a lot happier than when we first started coming up here 20 years ago.
We found the people to be joyful and happy, everyone that we've met, and I don't think it's just an act. I mean, you can't act that way. So I guess I have a question for you. You know, there's a lot of people who really try to grapple with the understanding of do my American funds do any good? Do we help? How should we be giving food to the poor? What is the best thing that we can do to help people like the folks here in Honduras?
I mean, there's opportunities for all of that, but one of the biggest things we see is infrastructure projects, helping build bridges, build roads, making access for people in areas like this to be able to get to the hospital, to be able to buy food, to be able to do the stuff they need. It's an often overlooked thing because it's not sexy, it doesn't attract a lot of attention, but making a 4-hour trip, an hour trip, is a huge difference for people to have opportunities for employment and to be able to get out and about. And we've seen that has been a huge thing over the years. And that's one of the reasons we're working on this road, to improve all of our neighbors' access, and for all the coffee that has to come up and down, the gravel and the cement and everything else. But if you don't do that, how are you ever going to progress and advance?
Yeah, it all seems to be about logistics. I mean, it seems that, like you say, when you shorten the trip, you were saying that some people were able to get jobs in the city then, that they wouldn't have worked if
Couldn't
they
have dreamed of it, yep. And then how do you get the food, if you have donated food, if you can't get there, how do you get it to the people that way as well? So it's all interconnected.
Infrastructure is the answer then. Roads.
Roads.
They're going to put the backhoe back on. We're going to go back and work on the road some more. Once we get the backhoe on, we're going to put the box blade in the truck. We've actually got another farm we're going to go to tomorrow. So we're going to work on the road on the way down today. See if we can get some of the areas where those slides have happened on the road cleared out. And then we'll take all this to the other coffee farm, which is several hours from here. We're allowing them to do the backhoe themselves and seeing how they do on it. Obviously we're here, we can provide advice if they get stumped, but I want to see them do it for themselves. Yes, we do have bolt-on hooks. We just haven't got them on yet. We'll do that, maybe not in this episode, but hopefully in the next one. These guys need to see them working. One of the steepest parts of the road that they're building up to the coffee farm is right here. And you can see the beginning up there of some concrete. They've got concrete about this wide, I would say 2 feet, maybe 2.5 feet wide. And it runs 150, maybe 200 feet, maybe 100, 150 to 200 feet. I'm not sure how far up the hill. They used $5,000 to do that portion in concrete. Now they chose that portion because it's really steep and they were having trouble holding the aggregate on the hill. So that's concrete. Again, it's just 2 tire widths wide. Right in the middle, they're going to put some river rock, we might call it. They call it drowned rocks. I like that. Drowned stones. It makes sense. They've been in the water. They're all smooth on the edge. And then they're going to mix concrete really thin, just enough to hold those rocks in place. So they've got good concrete where the tire tracks are, and then they're going to have really weak concrete, just enough to keep the rains from eroding the rest of those rocks away. That's what they're going to do in the middle, and that'll be a lot cheaper. $5,000. Notice the mixer up there. I don't know if you can see the mixer. That's a recent addition. For 15 years, they mixed by hand until finally someone donated enough money that they could get a mixer. It's amazing. The things we take for granted in the US and in modern Europe, it really is amazing. Okay, we got a couple of problems going on here at once. We're going to try to solve with one action. We've had a slide here, and you can see some of those larger rocks that Jeffrey's getting here right now. And then what we're going to try to do with that is take that mixture of rocks and soil. The soil is not going to do much good there. We're probably just losing it down the ditch. But the rocks hopefully will stay in this little corner here, right? And the water rushes up here. There's a big culvert in there, but we're still having problems with it washing over the top of that culvert, and it just gets narrow. And you can see that's how these little mountain passages work. They get narrow down here in this area, and then they have rock slides going up. I mean, this looks like an enormous task. It's 12 feet deep up there where we're trying to put this stuff. Now, until they had Bombine, they did all of this by hand, okay? So shovel it, moving those big rocks and everything, all of it by hand.
Esta con Bombine.
Bombine.
Hey, we're thinking about doing a live stream with Felipe where we could discuss more details about the mission and answer some of your questions as well.
This is where we need that hook. Darn hooks, we need the hooks.
And of course, we'll try to invite Kenton with his bright Get Hooked shirt if you would be interested.
Yeah, strapping the hook. Hey.
And then let us know in the comments section.
Now, you may not be able to see it, guys, but that's big rock. To my knowledge, this 1025R is stock from a hydraulic standpoint. I thought a little about maybe helping them increase the pressure a little bit, but after having seen them use it, I think maybe it's best just left alone. And they just use it hard. I mean, I think it's probably best left in its stock configuration. And they don't have the opportunity to repair it. You know, if I break something on mine, no big deal. But if they break something on theirs, they're out of luck. I think he may have learned that trick of going in 2 or 3 times and pushing 2 or 3 times to try to get a bigger bucket yesterday. That was interesting. It's amazing what they're learning just by watching me and as they use the machine, but it won't push too much, but if you'll get just a little bit each time, you can eventually get a big bucket. Now, if you missed our first episode, we fully understand that bombín here, that's their name, he means little bomb in Spanish. We understand that little Johnny here is not the right machine for this job, but hey, it's a lot better than a pick and a shovel, and you just can't beat the price. Again, this was donated by a local church in Indiana. Turns out that was the church that we used to attend when we lived in Carmel. And it's just been amazing for them, absolutely amazing, and really helped them a lot. Yeah, it'd be nice if they had a skid loader. It really would be nice for this type of task to have a skid loader, but getting a skid loader that's in good condition, where they don't have to be looking for parts, it's going to be a lot bigger donation for them. By the way, yes, we do know there's a lug bolt out of the left front. There is one John Deere dealer in Honduras, and I think we're going to try to visit it within the next couple of days. Maybe we can see if they have a lug bolt. We also saw that the tire was on backwards here on the left front. Have no idea what that story is. But clearly they've had the tire off. The front tires just they're not very strong. They're really not strong enough to handle thorns, and probably some of these jagged rocks too could tear them up. That's one thing I wish we had offered, was a stronger front tire, more plies, just a tougher front tire overall. They've built a little wall down there, and they're really excited about this big rock here. They're really wanting it strategically placed, and they got it. They're getting a nice little wall built there. That looks good. I think this is kind of amazing, actually. They've got, it's at least 12 feet of a almost vertical wall they built here with these rocks. It's stunning. They got, I think, 2 old tires they put down in there that kind of helped them get over the hump. Now, my understanding this is Juan. He's one of the pastors at the local church. So they're all working together. Felipe, we're seeing the property from here, right?
Correct. Yeah, mostly on the right-hand side of the screen, the center and the right-hand side, going all the way up the mountain there to the top of the hill.
Now that's the first peak we can see, where you can see the trees are gone and there's coffee being planted there. But you're saying you own mostly, almost to the top of the second ridge, the big ridge.
Correct. Yep. So there's a lot of property there that we'll be able to develop for the next decade or two.
Okay.
And some of it we want with wood on it, and we want to protect the water sources, so we're never going to plant the whole thing with coffee or other fruit trees. We'll be leaving some of it natural.
Okay, now I see 2 rows of what looks like banana trees down here at the bottom, mixed in with the coffee.
Yeah, it's just something to help produce and anchor, and they're free. They self-produce. It takes a couple of years to get a bunch of bananas. But again, we give them to kids and people in the community and the churches, and you can't have them all over because it's so cool up here. It would stunt to have them all through the coffee, but scattered throughout is fine.
Okay, and some of those coffee plants must be fairly new because they don't look as rich and full as some of the ones on further up.
Correct. Some of them are only a year or 2 in the ground, and some of them are 5 to 8 years or more in the ground.
And that's about the bottom of your property? I'm going to call it the bottom.
Just about 30 or 40 feet above the road is where our property starts.
Okay, so you've got some more area you could expand coffee on down through there.
Yep.
And you did mention the road, and you're the only user of that road.
Of that particular portion of the road, correct. Of the 3 miles or so to get up here, we brought up a bulldozer to do about 2 of that. And then this last little stretch, we have some neighbors here that use it, but nobody living right here. And then the other section, there's quite a few people that have benefited from the road as well.
So the parts that we've been working on today, and actually in the earlier video as well, are purely your road. I mean, there's no other maintenance on this road.
Correct, and it's consequently also the worst part of the road because nobody else has to deal with that but us. The end of the road.
Okay. We're trying to work with a rock now that's too big for bombín. I'm going to say 2,000 pounds. See, when that loader won't lift it at all,
Cuando la cuchara no lo levanta para nada, es más de 300 libras.
That shows 1,000 pounds probably. So the day laborers have dug a temporary ditch up around the top here. I don't know if they've got it fully downward sloped or not, but that was just a temporary solution. We can take Johnny here, or Bombine, and get rid of the bigger slide. You can get a pretty big bucket full going downhill. That's why I'm using this approach, and I don't have to turn around. Now we're almost done moving the major part of the dirt here. This road needs a ditch over there, and you saw they already knew that, obviously, and they had done their best to dig a ditch by hand. So we talked about, should we try to do it with the tractor? And they said actually no, that doing a narrow ditch right along something, if you got something sort of level like that, if you want to just do a narrow ditch, the day laborers are pretty good at that. So they have them. It takes time with Johnny here, or Bombine. So they would just as soon do the actual ditches with the day laborers. So this is the town that we stayed in last night. So it's 3 miles away from the coffee farm that we drove up to. Again, the last mile or so of that road is only for this mission, right? They're the only ones that are up there at the very top. Christy and I stayed on the first floor of this building right back here. The rest of the guys stayed on the second floor. This is the little bunkhouse or room that Christy and I stayed in last night. Christy stayed over here on a bunk, and I chose one over here. You can see that there's cement mix behind us. So they knew that there wasn't very many people on this particular trip. There are times that they have several more folks. The upstairs is very similar. We've already packed up our bedding. We're getting ready to go. We brought the bedding from the other mission house, and we found this entirely comfortable. I mean, once everyone settled down last night, it was quiet, and we were able to sleep and sleep quite well. Food here has been fabulous. Rice, beans, chicken is the biggest staples, and corn tortillas. That's the biggest items that we've had here, and it's all been good, and it's been plentiful. Now, I do believe that chicken is somewhat of a delicacy. I don't think they have that every meal, maybe not even every day. So that's one thing that the mission has been able to help with a little bit. They've got these rice bags that have the protein, as we've talked about. They're also able to have what they call the milk project, but it's broadened out dramatically from what the name might entail. Basically, this is a way to assist small children, to help them to be able to learn from an education standpoint. It's also to feed them. It's allowed some of the youth, some of the people in the area, the young kids, to grow bigger and stronger. And when I say bigger, I physically mean bigger. They are able to follow their students, and they are seeing that they are higher on the weight scale and on the height scale than some of the average around here. It's quite fascinating. It's a mission that's working and working well. I know you're wanting to see it. We'll show you the restroom. Okay, water, cold only. We have a toilet here. Everything looks normal. The shower's right over here. There's no shower curtain or anything, but that's the shower. The water here, it's a little bit leaky. I have trouble getting it to keep from dripping here. But I must show you the difference in the toilet flushing. So, used oil jug, they're cutting the top out of it. I'm in the shower here, and so we fill our oil jug right here. in the primitive towns, this is the experience we've had as far as bathroom goes. Whoa!
That's enough, Tim.
Preferably shut the water off before it overflows. Yeah, we didn't have that much pressure yesterday. It took longer to fill it. Okay, here I go. There is no water plumbed to the toilet. So you just do what they call a force flush. You just dump it in, and there's your flush right there. So it does a flush. It makes the same noise. It does a complete flush, just like your toilet in the USA, but you have to supply the water. No toilet paper allowed down the drain pipes. Not only are the drains right here in the building insufficient for that, but the entire sewer system in the whole country essentially is not capable of handling toilet paper. To be honest, I found that the most difficult thing. There's always a trash can sitting right beside the toilet. Oftentimes it has a lid, sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, I'll let you use your imagination from there. That's where you put your toilet paper. Then we ate in the second floor of this kind of, I don't know, orange or clay looking structure up there. You can see the really nice windows there. It's a very nice kitchen in there. You know, it's ready to handle these groups. Now, you see these nice trucks here, and so we've begun to understand kind of how the finances work for these groups that come. We're considered a group that's come to visit, even though we're a very small group and we are mainly family. They can't afford to have groups come down and visit for nothing. These trucks driving on these roads, in fact, we saw in the one of the storage containers that they have just a pile of tie rod ends. The conditions here are not good for vehicles. I mean, the roads are just so rough and so difficult. So when groups come to visit, we have to pay a certain amount per person, and then they use that money to pay the cooks here, to pay for the vehicles over the long term, to be able to just overall fund the kind of, you might even call it tourism, right? So when people say they're going on a mission trip, I don't want to overstate the mission aspect of it. I think we're going to see what's going on there. It's not necessarily that we're going to be helpful. I think we were able to perhaps provide a little help with little Johnny, but that's just a unique situation that we happen to. In general, the people here are very bright, very brilliant, very willing to work for themselves. So it's not like they need our help from an intelligence standpoint. In fact, we look at the roads that we are dealing with up there, and they know a lot more about road building than the average Midwesterner, at least, right? I mean, they really understand what makes a good road, about how to handle the ditches, et cetera, et cetera. So they don't need our help per se, but we can get value out of seeing the situation that they're in. And so that's really the value of these short-term trips. I think we as Americans want to have a feel-good mentality sometimes, and we say, hey, we want to go help these people in a poor country. We're really not that helpful. It's more for us to be able to see what's going on, to be able to show you guys what's going on. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We've got a couple more days here, so we will continue to show some more with Bombine at a different coffee farm tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim.
But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth.